Welcome friends to Farm Fresh Designs 59. My name is Myra, and if you're new to my channel, welcome. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much. So let's get started with today's projects. So my first piece today is just a scrap piece of wood that actually has something on the back side of it. But on this side, I painted it with Dixie Belle Mason-Dixon Gray, which is a beautiful gray, but it has sort of a purple undertone to it. Now, when I use this new Veranda stamp that is the lattice, I forgot to record it. So I'm going to show you just on some scrap paper how easy it is to use. So you put it on just a thin mount, and then I use the IOD black ink to stamp it. And one of the things I always like to do is just to have a baby wipe off to the side, and I like to go around and stamp any ink that may have got on those edges before I stamp it, and then that way you don't have to go back and paint over those little pieces that may be smudged on it. And this stamp is fairly easy to kind of line up, but it's super easy, and I love this new stamp. I just think it's such a pretty background. Now, after I stamped it, then I took it outside and I sprayed it with a clear sealer, because now I'm going to be using one of the flowers from that new transfer called Collage de Fleurs. And it's such a pretty neutral tone flower. So it's all sprayed up, and now I'm going to go ahead and start adding the detail to it. Now, this is just a mold that comes from the Trimmings I mold. I put cornstarch in the mold, and then I use Joss air dry clay. And then I just kind of push it out to the edges, which the IOD molds have a little micro rim on it. And then I just like to use an old credit card or an old gift card to kind of smooth it out on the back. And then I'm going to be putting it onto that piece of wood with Titebond Thick and Quick, which is the blue and the gray bottle, and it sets up really fast. Now I'm using some of the script from the older stamp called Rose Toile, and it's just got some really pretty script writing on it. And so I haven't decided exactly where I'm going to put the different pieces, so I have decided to just wait to put that transfer on. And once again, I just use a baby wipe to go around all the edges. Now, if you do not do this, or if you get a little smudge, most of the times it's easy to just dab a little paint on it to clean up that smudge. But sometimes you're in a situation where you can't. And so my best practice is to use a baby wipe. So I press that down, and then I decide I'm going to go ahead and put the transfer on it now. Now, on this particular flower, I've trimmed off like one of the little buds and some of the green flowers just because I didn't want that big of a piece, so I put that back for later. And with the IOD transfers, you just lay it down and use the little transfer tool to push it down, and then you just slowly pull up that little plastic piece and then rub over it, and that's called burnishing it. Now I'm using the IOD Swags mold, and the little piece that I'm putting clay in right now, it's just this little side piece, and the little rounded off part at the end has like some little florals on it, and I think it matches up real well with that transfer. So I make two of them, and then there's another little piece in that particular mold that looks like a little fleur-de-lis, and I'm going to put that in the center between those two pieces. And once again, I put those down with Titebond glue. Now I'm pulling out some more stamps from that Rose Toile, and it's some of the script. And then I'm going to be putting just a little piece of it right up above that flower. And then there's going to be some more script that I'll be putting up underneath that mold down at the very bottom. Now I could have used like the little mask over the inlay so that the stamps would not have that part of the inlay kind of, on top of it or up underneath it. But I was fine with the way it looks. So if that's something that bothers you, make sure to use that mask. Now I just go in with that Dixie Belle Mason-Dixon Gray, and I go ahead and paint my molds. And I like to go ahead and paint them after they've set up just a little bit. But I use a really soft brush so that it doesn't mess up any of the details. And then I paint both parts, or both molds, the part down at the bottom and up at the top with that Mason-Dixon gray. And because that that lattice piece is on there, I use like a little skinny brush to get around the edges. And then after it's dried, then I decided that I would go over it with some Dixie Belle white wax just to kind of bring out more of that detail in those molds. And then I just dry brushed some of that white wax over my entire sign. And I just think it's so beautiful, and I love this color. So what do you think? And have you bought some of the new IOD spring releases? I just love everything they put out this year. Okay, so my next piece, I'm going to be painting it with the Rust-Oleum Blush Pink. And this is just one of those wood shields that you can get at Hobby Lobby. I actually thrifted this one. And so I'm painting just the top of it. And once again, I'm pulling out that lattice stamp, the Veranda. And you're probably going to notice throughout this video that this is quickly becoming one of my favorite stamps. I just think it's so beautiful. And it makes such a good background for spring items especially. Now, I did smudge a little part of it. But with the IOD ink, if you wipe it off pretty quickly or right after you've done it, then it will come off. Now this is just a frames mold from the IOD frames, and I made it with resin. And I like to make those when I'm making things with resin because I use this mold a lot. And then I painted it white. And this is actually another picture of a really pretty lady that's got a hat on, that's got some florals on the hat. And this is a new printable, digital printable from Decoupage Central. So I'll make sure to put that in the description box below. And you can, get that from Decoupage Central and then print it out on your computer. And you've got it really fast. So I have sprayed this shield with clear Rust-Oleum because I'm going to be putting this transfer on it. And I believe this transfer is just some script writing that came from the IOD Brocante Transfer set. So now I'm ready to go ahead and put my frame on it. And then I use Pen Art Decoupage Varnish and Glue to just put that little printable down on it. And then this is just some extra ribbon that I had. And I just tie it in like a little bow and trim it off. And then I'm going to be gluing that to the top. And then I'm also going to be hot gluing another little button on it. And it's just some little buttons that you can get at Walmart. And they just have little rhinestones on it. And I just think it's so pretty. And then I decided, after it was all said and done, I went over that frame with some Dixie Belle Grunge Gray Wax because I thought that the frame needed to kind of be just a little bit darker so that it would stand out more on this piece. And I just think it's so, so pretty and so dainty. So what do you think? And I love this printable. I actually mentioned to Jonelle at Decoupage Central that we needed something like that. So she just recently created it. And I just think this is such a pretty woman. And I just love that it just fits so well with this pink. So what do you think? So friends, if you are enjoying the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do that and become part of our family. Now, the next project is just a sign that I thrifted. And I think it came from Dollar General. It was pretty heavy. And so I painted it with Rust-Oleum Serenity Blue. And I'm going to be using that new stamp called Patishe. And I'm going to be putting a cloche. And I'm going to be putting a nest on it. So what I did was I took a larger piece of thin mount and laid the little cloche down on that piece of wood. And got it where I needed it to. And then I laid that thin mount on top so I would be just in the right place. And then before I picked that up, I took the little nest stamp and I laid it on top of that cloche and then put the thin mount on that just so I would know where the placement was. But before I do that, I go ahead and stamp the nest. And I've kind of lined that. Oh, excuse my voice, friends. I still am just a little bit sick. So I lined that thin mount up to the edges, and then before I stamped the cloche, then I put that mask on top of that little nest before I stamped up the cloche. Now, I realized when I was taping this that actually I probably could have stamped that nest a little bit further down into that cloche. But, you know, we're still learning with all of these new masks and these new stamps. And so I'm fine with it because this is going to be staying at my house. But I just love these new Patishe stamps. It's got cloches and bird cages. It's just got a plethora of all these different items that you can put inside of these cloches and these bird cages, or you can use them on your own. So I've got that little mask down, and now I'm going to step the cloche, and I'm going to line that little thin mount up exactly with the corners of that little piece of wood, and it makes it super easy. Now with that little cloche, the little side pieces of that stamp are real thin, so you have to be really careful so you don't let that stamp roll a little bit when you push down on it. So just do it very gently. Now, this is a transfer, and I think it came from a redesign with Prima transfer set. It's something that's really old that I've had for a while, and basically it's just some little script that I'm going to put down at the bottom. And then I want to add just a little bit of some black ink to the edges, just to kind of darken up those edges so it won't be quite so bright. And this is just a little makeup brush. And once again, I'm using the IOD black ink. Now, I want to add like a little bird to it. So this little bird came from the IOD primitive mold. And because I am going to be like maybe putting it exactly on top of that nest, I didn't really want to kind of risk maybe accidentally painting into that nest. So I decided I would paint it before I put it on. And then once I put it on, I decided I needed to put some dark wax on that little bird just so it would stand out, because I had painted it the same color as the background. And see right there, you can tell I should have put that nest a little bit further down. But I'm still kind of learning with these cloches and bird cages, you know, kind of exactly where to put the placement on it. But the masks are wonderful. And if you've not used masks before, they really are super easy. And if you're uncomfortable doing, practice it, because it really is so much fun to use those masks. So my last piece is going to be using the Specimens mold. And it was kind of inspired by Victoria Conhurst on Facebook. But before I do that, I'm going to be making some of the apothecary labels, and I make it with resin. And if you've not used resin, there's two parts. A is clear and B is kind of a yellow, and it's a 1-to-1 ratio. You pour it in a cup, and then you go ahead and stir it up, and it starts out being cloudy, and then when it turns clear, it's ready to pour in those molds. So I wanted to make a lot of these different labels because I wasn't sure which one I was going to make. And so you just pour that in, and in about 10 minutes it sets up, and it's a white mold, and I love it. And so these are just some extra little labels that I like to keep on hand, because you just never know when you're going to need one for a project. And so I just kind of keep a box of different molds. Now this is the Laurel mold. And on this one, what I'm doing is I'm using hot glue to make these particular molds, and you'll see why in a few minutes. But this one is the small crayon. So if you've not used hot glue in a mold, it's super easy, but I will tell you that your hot glue guns need to be at least 100 degrees for it to come out really easy and smooth. And one has a really fine tip nozzle, and the other one is kind of wider. Now, this is one of the specimen molds that I thought looked kind of girly girl. So that's why I'm doing this particular one. But on this particular little bug, I'm not putting the antennas on it, because I'm going to be putting that crown on top of it. And that's what the hot glue looks like when you take it out of the mold. It's kind of a clear looking, and then you just kind of pull the different strings off. And on this one, I needed to kind of snip that up at the top so that it would be going straight across. And it's just super easy. And when you first take it out of the mold, that's probably the best time to trim it off because it's going to be just a little bit softer then. Now, I was out of painter's tape, which I like to do that. I like to put the sticky side of painter's tape down and then put my molds on it when they're small. And then that way you keep from getting paint all over your hands. But I was out of painter's tape, and I've been so sick that I didn't even feel like going to Walmart to get some painter's tape. So after I get through painting these, I end up having paint all over my hands. And I start out painting them white, and I go all around the edges. And this is Rust-Oleum Linen White Chalk Paint. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how I add the two pieces together. Now this is just a cheap little glue gun. And so I put a little bit of glue on the top of that little bug, and then I put the crown on top of it, and it just magically sticks together because they're both made out of hot glue. So after that, then there was just a little teeny gap. So once again, I just added a little bit of hot glue where that gap was, just so that it would smooth it out. But once you get it painted, you can't even tell that there's that little edge. And then I'm going to go ahead and get it all trimmed up with white one more time, just to make sure that all of that is covered up. Because when you use hot glue molds, sometimes I think they're just a little bit harder to glue. Seems to where it takes just a little bit more paint. And then I painted the bottom part of the little bug with pink, and then I just used some metallic gold to paint part of the crown, and there were some little dots on the crown. And then this is one of the labels, and that I made with resin, and I go ahead and paint that white. Because even though it is already white, I think sometimes it's easier to paint it before you add different parts to it. Now, I pull out that gold paint again because I was thinking that maybe if I used the gold gilding wax, that would be enough. But I felt like the gold in the crown was just a little bit bright, and I needed to add some more down at the bottom of my little bug, because I wanted her to look very royal with all of this gold, and I just think she's so pretty. And so I just paint little pieces here and there, and then in that little centerpiece, I kind of imagined that would be where a belt buckle would be. So I painted just a little bit of extra gold right there, and then I used that gold because on that middle section, there's some little stripes on it. And so I used that gold just to add a little bit extra detail, just so that it matches up with the top. And then I decided, well, I'll use a little bit more gold gilding wax. So I just kind of rubbed it on here and there because I wanted it to not only be with the bright gold paint, but just have that extra edge. And then I decided to use my gold gilding wax to go all around this little plaque that I painted with the Rust-Oleum blush pink. And this little wood is just one of those little plaques that you can get at Hobby Lobby. Now, once again, I pull out that Veranda stamp because, well, I think y'all figured out that I do love it. And then this time, I'm going to stamp it with some gold ink. And I get that at Hobby Lobby, and it's called Brilliance. And then I go ahead and stamp that little plaque with that gold ink, just because I want it all to kind of blend together really well. And then once I did all of this, then I thought, well, I think that label needs some more gold. So I was just really going pretty heavy with this gold metallic paint. So I went all the way around the edges. Now watch what I'm doing. This is just some little white tulle that I got at Walmart in the fabric department. And I just tied a little bit up with a little white ribbon, and I put that up underneath my little queenly bug, and I glued that down. And now I'm taking that mold that I made, and I'm going to put that down with hot glue. Now, I did pull out my really hot glue gun again, because I think if I used the one that didn't have very high temperature, it might not stay. And then on the label and right down there at her little belt buckle, it's just some little gold trim. And I think I bought that at Hobby Lobby. And I didn't want to give her a name. I wanted to just add just a little bit more bling to her. And I just think she's beautiful. So tell me, what do you think? She is really girly girl. And I am loving this mold way more than I thought I would. So friends, we are at the end of the video today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I inspired you. And I hope that you will recreate some of these projects or use these different products to make your own creations. So in the comments below, tell me, what is your favorite piece today? And also, with Easter coming up, let me know, are you wanting some videos during the Easter break? Because with me being not even a year into YouTube, then I need to know what part of the Easter break is going to work for you to be watching videos. Because I've got some more things coming up that I'm excited to show you. So let me know what's your favorite piece, and are you going to be available during the Easter break to be watching some videos? Because I've got some really pretty things coming up that I'm still working on. But don't you just love that little queen bug? I just think she is so, so precious. And to all of my new subscribers, welcome. My channel is growing and I'm so happy about it, and I'm so glad you're here. So once again, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel, and make sure to turn on the notifications button so you know when I will upload my next video. Have a great day.